Have you ever stopped to think about what your money habits are actually costing you? Maybe you're lying in bed at 3 in the morning doing mental math about your bank account balance, wondering if you're spending more than you should be. Or perhaps you're seeing your friends buying houses, upgrading their cars, taking trips abroad, and you're thinking, how are they affording all this? Where's the money coming from? Well, I'm going to break down something that most people don't want to look at directly: the shocking reality of where your money actually goes. And I promise you, some of these numbers are going to make you uncomfortable. Some might actually surprise you in a good way. But by the time we're done here, you'll have a much clearer picture of what your spending really looks like compared to everyone else around you. My name is John, and I help people get real about their finances, their habits, and how they spend every single dollar. If you want to understand where your money goes and maybe even feel less guilty about some of your choices, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button if this stuff resonates with you. Before we get into the actual numbers, I want you to think about something. When you imagine the average person's spending habits, what do you picture? Do you imagine someone who's got it all figured out, buying things intentionally, knowing exactly where every dollar goes? Or do you imagine someone just kind of floating through life, swiping their card whenever they feel like it, hoping nothing catches up with them? The reality is that most of us have this weird fantasy that everyone else is more financially responsible than we are, that everyone else has a system, a plan, a budget. But the truth is, most people are just winging it. They're spending money kind of randomly. They have no clear idea what it all adds up to, and they definitely don't have a real sense of what normal actually looks like. And here's what's really important about knowing these numbers: it's not just trivia or gossip. Understanding where your money goes and how it compares to everyone else gives you actual power. It gives you the ability to make real changes. Think about it like this: if you're trying to get healthy, don't you want to know what the average person's diet looks like or how much they exercise? If you're trying to improve at something, you want a benchmark, right? Money's exactly the same way. When you know what normal spending looks like, you can actually make informed decisions about whether your spending is reasonable or whether you need to make some changes. So let's start with the most obvious category: housing. How much is the average person actually putting toward their home? According to housing data from the past few years, the average household spends somewhere around $1,800 to $1,900 per month on housing. And this includes your mortgage or rent, your property taxes if you own, your homeowner's insurance, your utilities, maintenance, repairs, all of that. Nearly $2,000 a month. That's almost $22,000 per year just to have a roof over your head. Now, if you live in a major city like Los Angeles or Boston, that probably sounds like a joke. I get it. But that's the actual average across the entire country. And here's what's wild: if the average household is spending almost $1,900 on housing, and they also need to spend money on literally everything else, that means housing is eating up probably 30 to 40% of their total spending, which is actually a lot. Most financial advisors say housing should be no more than 25 to 30% of your income. So, already, before we even talk about food, transportation, insurance, or all that other stuff, the average person is spending too much on housing. Let's talk about food, because this is an area where I think most people are shocked when they actually look at the numbers. The average household spends about $700 to $750 per month on food. That includes groceries, takeout, restaurants, coffee, all of it, over $8,000 per year on eating. When you really think about it, that's a massive chunk of money. And here's the frustrating part: a lot of that money is being wasted. Some food spoils in the fridge because people bought too much. Some goes to restaurants where you're paying inflated prices. Some goes to convenience foods that cost way more than if you just bought the ingredients and made it at home. I'm not saying you should never go out to eat or that you need to eat rice and beans every day. But if the average person is spending $750 a month on food, and some people are doing it on $400 and living just fine, that's a gap. That's money that could be going to something else. Transportation is another category that kind of sneaks up on people. The average American household spends around $900 to $950 per month on transportation. That's your car payment, your insurance, your gas, your maintenance, parking, tolls, public transportation if you use it nearly $1,000 a month, over $11,000 per year. And honestly, a lot of people spend way more than that. If you've got a new car, you could easily be looking at $1,500 or $2,000 a month just for the vehicle payment alone. So when you add up housing at $1,800, food at $750, and transportation at $950, you're already at $3,500 per month. And we haven't even talked about utilities, insurance, phone bills, internet, entertainment, clothing, or anything else. $3,500, that's $42,000 per year just on housing, food, and getting around. For a single person or a couple, that's huge. But let's keep going because there's more. Entertainment and recreation. The average household is spending about $200 to $250 per month on entertainment. That's streaming services, going to movies, concerts, activities, hobbies, stuff like that. Not a ton individually, but it adds up. Then you've got clothing and personal care items, another $200 to $250 per month. Your phone bill, if it's not rolled into something else, $100 to $150. Internet and cable or streaming packages, maybe $100 to $200. Insurance, health insurance, if you're not getting it through work, car insurance, renters, or homeowners insurance, depending on your situation, probably anywhere from $300 to $500 per month total. And then there's the stuff nobody really budgets for: household repairs, car maintenance, replacing broken things, emergency vet bills, medical expenses that insurance doesn't cover, gifts for other people, all that miscellaneous stuff. This is probably another $300 to $400 per month for the average household, just to account for things that come up unexpectedly. So let me add this all up. Housing, $1,850. Food, $700. Transportation, $925. Entertainment, $225. Clothing and personal care, $225. Phone and internet, $150. Insurance, $400. Miscellaneous and unexpected stuff, $350. That's $4,825 per month, almost $58,000 per year. And I'm being fairly conservative with these numbers. A lot of households are actually spending more than this. But $58,000 a year is just the baseline. And here's the thing that really gets me. Most people don't actually know that they're spending this much. They think they're spending $3,000 or $3,500 a month. But they're not tracking all the little things that add up those $5 coffee runs, the $10 impulse purchases at the grocery store, the streaming services you forgot you were subscribing to, the DoorDash order because you don't feel like cooking. All of that compounds so fast. You could be spending an extra $400 or $500 a month without even realizing where it's going. And that's where the average person gets stuck. Here's something that really messes with people's financial plans: credit card interest. The average household has about $6,000 to $7,000 in credit card debt. And they're paying interest rates of 15, 18, sometimes 22% or higher. If you've got $6,500 in credit card debt at an average interest rate of 19%, you're paying about $1,235 per year just in interest. That's money going straight to the credit card company that's not paying down any of your actual debt. It's just gone. Poof. And think about this for a second. That's money that could be going toward literally anything else. Your retirement, your kid's college fund, a vacation, building an actual emergency fund. But instead, it's just floating away to finance charges. And the crazy part is that a lot of people are stuck in this cycle where they're not even trying to pay off the debt because the interest keeps making the balance grow. They're just paying the minimum, which barely covers the interest, and the balance stays basically the same year after year. It's honestly kind of predatory. Some people are making minimum payments on thousands of dollars of credit card debt for 5, 10, sometimes even 15 years. If the average person made it a priority to pay off their credit card debt, even if they put an extra $200 per month toward it, most could be debt-free in 2 to 3 years. But instead, they keep paying interest indefinitely. And that's the thing that separates people who build wealth from people who don't. It's the willingness to actually deal with the problem instead of ignoring it and hoping it goes away. Let's talk about something that should be depressing, but somehow isn't getting enough attention. Savings. How much is the average person actually putting aside from all this spending? According to recent surveys, the median American household has less than $1,000 in emergency savings. Less than $1,000. That's not even enough to cover a single emergency car repair, a medical bill, or a home emergency. Most financial experts recommend having 3 to 6 months of expenses saved for emergencies, which for most households would be $15,000 to $30,000. But the average person doesn't have that. They have less than $1,000. And when an emergency happens, which it always does, eventually they end up putting it on a credit card, which brings us right back to that credit card debt issue. It's kind of a vicious cycle, right? The average person doesn't have emergency savings, so when something unexpected happens, they go into debt. Then they're paying interest on that debt, which makes it harder to save, which means the next emergency puts them into more debt, and it just keeps going and going. Now, about 40% of American households couldn't come up with $400 for an emergency without borrowing money or selling something. $400. That's like a week's worth of groceries or a moderately priced car repair, and 4 out of 10 households couldn't handle that without going into debt. That's actually insane when you think about it. It means the majority of Americans are living on the edge. They're one unexpected expense away from financial disaster. You could lose your job. Your car could break down. You could need a dental procedure. Any of these things could push you over the edge into debt. And then once you're in debt, it's so much harder to get out of it because now you're paying interest and your financial situation gets worse instead of better. Student loan debt is another huge issue we need to talk about. The average student loan borrower is carrying about $30,000 to $35,000 in student loan debt, and they're probably spending $200 to $300 per month in loan payments. Some people are paying way more than that if they took out larger loans or have multiple loans. But $250 a month is pretty typical. Now, here's where it gets complicated. If you're spending $250 a month on student loans and you're already spending $4,800 or more on basic living expenses, your take-home pay after taxes needs to be pretty substantial just to break even. Most entry-level jobs after college pay somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 per year. After taxes, that's probably $3,000 to $3,500 per month take-home. And if you're already spending $4,800, you're immediately upside down. You can't afford your basic expenses, plus your student loan payments. So a lot of people are going further into debt even though they have jobs. They're using credit cards to fill the gap. And now they're paying interest on top of everything else. It's a really tough spot. Healthcare spending is another area where the numbers get scary. The average American household spends somewhere between $400 and $600 per month on healthcare. That includes insurance premiums, copays, deductibles, medications, dental work, vision care, all of that stuff. And if you don't have employer-sponsored health insurance, you could easily be spending $1,000 or more per month on health insurance alone, depending on your age and your family situation. Healthcare is one of those things that people don't really choose to spend money on. It's not like eating out or buying clothes where you have control. You get sick or you have a dental problem and you have to deal with it, so this is kind of an unavoidable expense for most people. But it's also one of the biggest reasons people end up in debt. An unexpected medical emergency can cost thousands of dollars. And if you're already living paycheck to paycheck, like most people are, that one medical emergency can spiral into years of financial struggle. Childcare is another massive expense that doesn't get talked about enough. If you have young children and both parents are working, childcare costs can be absolutely brutal. In many parts of the country, full-time childcare costs somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 per month per kid. Some places it's even more. So if you have two young kids and you're both working, you could be spending $2,000 to $4,000 per month just on childcare. That's $24,000 to $48,000 per year. And that only covers the cost while your kids are in school or daycare. Once you add in all the other expenses of actually raising kids, food, clothes, and stuff, the total is enormous. This is one of the reasons a lot of people, particularly women, end up leaving the workforce or going part-time. The childcare costs end up being so high that working full-time doesn't even make financial sense anymore. You're working to pay for childcare so you can work. It's kind of backward. Now, let's talk about what all this spending means for your financial future. If the average person is spending $4,800 to $5,000 per month just on basic expenses, and they're also carrying credit card debt and student loan debt, how much do you think they're actually saving for retirement? The answer is probably not much. The average American has about $60,000 to $70,000 saved for retirement by the time they're in their 50s. And that's actually pretty generous because a lot of people have way less than that. A significant portion of Americans have basically zero saved for retirement. They're planning to rely on Social Security and hope it doesn't run out. But Social Security is only going to replace about 40% of your pre-retirement income. So if you were making $50,000 a year, Social Security is going to give you about $20,000 a year. That's not enough to live on for most people. So retirement is going to be either really rough or you're going to have to work way longer than you expected. The bottom line is this: the average person's spending is way out of control, and they have no idea how much money is actually slipping through their fingers. They think they're doing okay because they have a job and they're paying their bills, but they're actually living paycheck to paycheck. They have almost no savings, they're carrying debt, and they're completely unprepared for retirement. These statistics should be shocking to you. They should make you uncomfortable. But here's the really important part. Now that you know what normal looks like, you have the power to do better. If the average person is spending $5,000 a month, and you can figure out how to spend $4,000 a month while still living a decent life, you just freed up $12,000 per year. That's an extra $12,000 you can put toward paying off debt, building savings, or investing for the future. And that's just one area. If you also focus on reducing credit card spending, negotiating your insurance, or finding ways to spend less on food, all those small changes add up. The power of understanding these statistics is that you now know what the baseline is, and you can choose to do better than the baseline. You don't have to be the average person. You don't have to spend the way the average person spends. You don't have to go into debt the way the average person does. And you definitely don't have to reach retirement with nothing saved. These numbers represent the current situation, but they don't have to be your future. Start tracking your spending today. Look at exactly where your money is going. Find one category where you can cut back. Then find another. Build momentum. Make it a priority to eliminate your credit card debt. Start an emergency fund, even if it's just $50 per paycheck. It adds up faster than you think. Look at your insurance rates and see if you can negotiate better ones. Make coffee at home instead of buying it every day. Cook at home more instead of eating out. These aren't sexy financial tips. They're boring, but they work. And when you do these things consistently, the results are absolutely massive. You'll have debt paid off, you'll have emergency savings, you'll have money going into retirement accounts, you'll have the peace of mind that comes with actually knowing your financial situation and having a plan. The choice is yours.